Today's video is all about mashing up some vellum videos together. I love using vellum, and there are actually so many ways you can use it. And of course, I have the magical way on how you can adhere vellum without the glue showing through. So I hope you enjoy today's vellum mashup. Let me know if you have any tips and tricks on using vellum, and I can incorporate those ideas into future videos.
So this vellum is 40-pound vellum, very thick, so great for die cutting, dry embossing, those types of things. It's very handy. It's also good vellum for when you are going to heat emboss, which I'm going to show you here as the first technique you can use with your vellum. There are thinner vellums on the market. They're more transparent, so more see-through, and those definitely have their pros. But for all of the cards and techniques I'm going to use in today's video, I'm using the 40-pound vellum. So this is that Debbie tool I used in the last video. A couple of people asked to see the bottom of it, so here you go. I believe this is felt. So I inked up an oldie. It's called The Good Life from Penny Black with some embossing ink from Wow. And put it, you can see it in the light. It's clear, obviously, it's embossing ink. And I'm going to use a couple of opaque embossing powders from Wow. These are kind of like a granular mix, so there's like chunks of gray and white and pink and all that stuff. This one is called Fizz, I believe. These are old. I'm using what I've got, so I don't know if these particular embossing powders are still around, but they're from Wow, so check out their website. They do ship in the US, or see what you've got. Maybe you can mix your own together. Do it in a separate container, but mix a couple embossing powders together and see what kind of mixes you get. So I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss this. Let your heat tool heat up. Tip number one for heat embossing on vellum, make sure it's good. Heat up 30 seconds. Constantly move your embossing tool. Heat from the front, heat from the back. Flip it around, keep it moving. That way your paper won't warp. This is very fine, high maintenance paper is what I can say. So as long as you keep that tool moving, and because I'm using 40-pound, it does make it easier, you can heat emboss on your vellum. Just keep it moving, flip it around, flip it upside down, keep it moving.
I want to thank Craftsy for sponsoring my video today, and they're offering the first 1,000 of you a whole year of premium membership for just $1.49. Seriously. So Craftsy is an online hub for all things creative. They have more than 2,000 classes in over 20 different categories, like, of course, paper crafting, photography, knitting, cake decorating, woodworking, crochet. You think it, they got it. Now, in addition to regular card making, digital card making, scrapbooking, all the courses we know we love, I found something amazing. Paper flowers. I'm super big into gardening and cut flowers, and I was so excited to see this course by Kate Arlecombe, is how I'm going to pronounce her name. All about making these super cool paper flowers. This is all paper, you guys. Look how gorgeous this is. I was totally stoked. So this is the class me and my daughter are taking right now. If you are interested in the deal of $1.49 for an entire year, no strings attached, you can click the QR code on the screen or in the link below. Remember, the first 1,000 people to click that link or that QR code will get a year's membership for $1.49.
And then you've got a good embossed image there. Ain't that pretty? All right, so technique number 2 for what you can do on vellum is you can ink blend and add some color. Flip the paper over. You are doing this from the back side of your design. Don't do it on the front, do it on the back. I'm going in, I have so many different blending tools, so I'm using all different kinds. Use what you have, use makeup sponges, use whatever. But I'm going in with some Catherine Puller ink. All of the inks I'm using will be linked in the description below for you if you want to know what colors I'm using. And I'm just inking from the back side. I'm not taking too much care. The ink sits on top of the paper because it's vellum, so you can see my fingerprints all in there, so I have to go and smooth that out. Like I said, vellum is high maintenance, but it's worth it. I try to dry it a little bit as I go, so I'm not constantly putting my fingerprints into the paper. But I just blend, blend, blend. The darker colors you use, the better. Then on the back side, again, I'm always working on the back side of this panel here. I'll add some Waterflex. Look how it picks up. It is so cool. The Catherine Puller inks are water reactive, but it's especially beautiful on vellum. And that can kind of cover any imperfection you have, maybe from ink blending, but it just gives this really pretty look. See, I had a little splotch here, so I'm just going in with some water and covering that up. Then I let it dry. Let it dry before you move on. Technique number 3 is how the hang do you adhere vellum? This is how. This is some sticky tape from scrapbook.com. It is 4 inches, so it covers almost the entire width of your standard card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This stuff is sticky, but it's invisible. It's magic. So I'll peel off the backing, which is the hardest thing of all for me, is just peeling it off. And then I'll go ahead and adhere it down, and you can't see the glue for nothing. It's just not there. This is very sticky glue, so you need to commit to where you're going to stick it, but this is the best glue I have ever found for vellum. It is friggin' amazing. I love it. And let's go ahead and finish off this card right here. This is a word die I pulled from my magic mug. I've got a piece of tape there that I'm just kind of putting. I'm going to tape it down on the top side of the word die. It's going to work as a handle, but also as a mask. So I'm going to take my embossing pad here from Wow. I'm going to swink it. Surely you know what swinking is by now, right? Right on the bottom there, and then I'm going to add some more embossing powder. Another blend, chunky blend of different colors and granules and all that stuff, but it's so pretty. And now I've got this dipped word die. That's what I'm calling it. Dip, baby, dip. Woo! Here's my favorite glue. Never going to change it up. Had it for, gosh, a year and a half now. Whenever it came out, I got it. And here's a look at this card. Look at all the shine and the beautifulness. And because that vellum, you can see through a little bit to the bottom of the card. You can see the glue. Love it, love it, love it. Another technique you can do with vellum is dry embossing. These are some 3D folders from Altenew. I got them when I taught a class for Altenew on 3D embossing folders. So I've had them for several months now. They're great. I love them. So I'm running them through my Cuttlebug. I use a Gemini Junior die cutting machine, but I can't put that on camera. So I'm using my Cuttlebug, which I got, oh my gosh, like 15 years ago off of eBay. That was my first die cutting machine. And running that through, I'm going to use the Buffalo Plaid and also this Daisy Bed 3D embossing, whatever. The names are in the description below in this playlist if you care. So I'm going to run that through. You've got to figure out what your embossing sandwich is for your die cutting machine. For me, on this machine, it's the A plate and the C plate. That's it, with the embossing folder in between. But look at this image. You get the front, you get the back, whatever floats your boat. It cuts great on this 40-pound vellum. If you use thinner vellum, it probably would crack a little bit. You get a little, maybe some tears because the paper is so thin. So do keep that in mind if you're going to try to do some 3D embossing. So for this, I'm going to flip it over on the back, and I'm going to use these 3 colors, Rouge, Grape Crush, and Bay Breeze, and ink blend the bejeebies. Just, there is no rhyme, there is no reason. I am not blending. This looks like one hot mess. But when you flip it over, that's kind of where the magic is. And you can see I'm using all different kinds of blending brushes. I really don't feel like the blending brushes, you know, there's so many different kinds on the market, but if you don't have any makeup brushes, those have been around forever, you can grab those, blending wedges, beauty wedges, whatever. So when you flip it over, it's so gorgeous and it's like magic. It's like it's all blended, and I just adhered a word die from my magic mug, and that's it. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, I've lost count of what number technique we're on, but here's another technique for using vellum. We're going to use some alcohol markers. Now, I am not good with alcohol markers, so I have very few Copics, and they're like dried out, whatever, but I made it work. They're old, had them forever. So anyway, I'm going to ink this up with some black pigment ink. It's pigment, so it stays wet longer, so I am able to heat emboss this, doing it the same exact way, sprinkling on some clear embossing powder, and then I'll go ahead and heat set this. Again, flipping your paper up, down, left, right, keep your tool moving. I do want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. You guys know I'm a huge fan. I learned a lot from Jane Davies. She is the one who got me into watercoloring animals. Her class is fantastic. I can't recommend her enough. Skillshare is a platform that offers, God bless, whatever you want to learn. It's probably on Skillshare. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get 1 month free trial of Skillshare, so you can check it out and see if it's your jam. So here are my super dried out Copics. I am again working on the back side. I went ahead and heat embossed the front side and I flipped it over to the back, and I am just scribbling like no one's business. This looks disgusting. It looks like a hot mess. Doesn't matter. Keep it rolling. Now you can use any kind of alcohol markers you have. These are Copics. Look at that brown, like nothing even came through. It's so dry, but I ain't getting any more markers. I'm using these. I mean, this looks like a hot mess, but don't worry, when you flip it over, it doesn't look this bad, I promise. That's why we're working on the back side. I even tried to do blending with the Copic blender. I do have a refill for that, so that one's juicy. But yeah, there ain't no blending happening. I even tried to do some shading. Whatever. Anyway, try. It doesn't really matter. When you flip it over, it really looks pretty. Now, one of the good things about Vellum is it's transparent, so you can actually see like the shading of whatever card base you use. So this is a good time to maybe pull out some of that colored cardstock you hoard. I'm just saying. So again, the magic tape here, peeling it off, slapping it down. You can't even see the glue. And here I just, you know it, slapped on a die cut from my magic mug. So all the like pen marks and stuff from the alcohol markers, I think it looks cool. It really does. Now this is my favorite card. I mean, I'm not trying to be biased, but this is like absolutely my favorite. I saw this on YouTube. I don't know, some Stampin' Up! Demo was recommended on my home screen and I watched it. And she did this, and her name is Linda, and I cannot for the life, there's like 50 billion Stampin' Up! Demonstrators, so I can't find her again. But Linda, pretty sure that's your name. This was amazing. I had to try it myself. So I've got this wolf. By the way, I love wolves. I think they're so cool. It's like a silhouette stamp from Catherine Pooler. This again is old. It's like a year old. I stamped it 3 times on this piece of vellum. It's just cut to the width of a standard card base, so it's 4 1/4 wide. And I stamped it 3 times. And then I'm using this to kind of put the little dash lines of where their feet are going to go. So I used it like a little template, so I can stamp this very quickly onto some white cardstock, again, cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 because I'm boring. So I'll go ahead and ink this up with black Nocturne ink. It's pigment ink, so you know it. I'm going to sprinkle in embossing powder and heat set it. I also heat set the wolves on the vellum, by the way. I don't think that was in the video, but I did go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to erase the pencil mark. You don't want little pencil marks on your card, so make sure that you remember to erase them. And then I'll do, I did die cut this little circle die from some sticky paper. It's like full sticky notes. You know, had those forever too, found them in a drawer. And to create a moon, and then I'm doing some very quick and easy ink blending to create like a sunset, perhaps. Like the wolves are going to be howling at the moon, and that's why I did that circle mask. I don't have any circle dies, so this one actually has a stitch, like little stitched edge around it, so it's going to be a funny looking moon, but whatever. So look at that. That's pretty cool, right? You like that? And I'm kind of removing I don't know why I did that. I didn't even need to remove it because I need to flick on some water. This is regular cardstock. This isn't watercolor cardstock, by the way. This is just white cardstock, probably Nina, Solar White. And now I'm going to move to this. This is the only time in this video that I am working on the front side of the vellum. All right, this is the front side, not the back side. I didn't flip it over, and you'll see why in a minute. So again, this is the only time I'm working on the front side. So I wanted to go ahead and put some Bay Breeze ink on there. Then I'm going to flick on some water. Oh, I just love how water works on this vellum. It's probably the vellum tied with the ink. I don't know, but it's just really neat. Again, those wolves were heat embossed in clear embossing powder, both of them on the cardstock and on the vellum. So I peeled off the circle moon. You see my little dash lines, whatever. So I added a little bit of ink blending on the moon so it wasn't so stark white. Then I'm going to go ahead and put that tape on the vellum front side, because why? I'm going to be using the back side. It's going to be a reflection. So again, in this whole video, this is the only one I'm working on the front side of the vellum because it's going to be like a mirror image, like it's a reflection. So I'm flipping it over and using the back. I just confused you. Let me explain. I put all the ink blending and everything on the front side of the vellum because I adhered it flipped over on the back side. So all my work was done on the front side, including the glue. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, just look at this card. It is so stinking cool. The wolves howling, the reflection of the watered vellum. I love it. All right, and the last technique, technique number I don't remember. This was the Buffalo Plaid 3D embossing folder we did towards the beginning of the video. I went ahead and cut this down, put it at a little angle, and did the sticky tape, so I sticked it down. These are butterflies that were left over from my last video. It was a video on how to use a butterfly stamp 5 different ways or 4 different ways, I can't remember. I'll link to it in the description, but these were left over, so I put them in my magic mug, so I was able to pull those out. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere this down using my favorite little glue. By the way, this glue is never clogged. I have never had a glue that's never clogged. And I've tried a lot of glues. I did the runners and they would even clog. The runners would even clog. Like it would all goop up at the end. This glue just doesn't do that anyway. All right, so I've gone ahead and glued my little butterfly down. And of course, all my dies, sentiment strips, word dies, they all come out of my magic mug. So it really makes pulling together the finished product of the card with the sentiment super duper easy. If you don't know what video I'm talking about, I'll link that in the description below as well. I probably should do a dedicated video on my magic mug because the video where this magic mug was pretty much invented on the fly is a time-saving hack video.
Today we're going to talk about vellum. I've got 5 different techniques on how to use vellum and, of course, the magic way to adhere vellum so you don't see the glue. Let's get to it.
This is one of my most favorite ways to use vellum, and that's to create a reflection. So I've got this 40-pound vellum, and I'll show it again a bit later on in the video. I also have it in gold, and I'm going to stamp a couple of deer from a stamp set I'll show you a little bit later on too. But any image you want, I'm just focusing on animals. So I'm going to stamp it with some black ink, and I'm going to go ahead and heat set it. Now this is very thick vellum. This is 40-pound vellum. So I'm able to very easily do heat setting just by constantly moving my heat tool, and I also let my heat tool heat up for about 30 seconds before I take it to the vellum. If you have very thin vellum, I'm not sure this will work for you. It might crinkle up a lot easier than this thick vellum, so that's why I highly encourage you to invest in at least 40-pound vellum. You can get a whole pack, it'll last you a lifetime. So now that I've gone ahead and heat set that, I'm going to color the deer. This is an alcohol marker, Copic marker. I only have like 5 left in my stash. I'm surprised it even has ink in it because I don't know how to Copic color, but I sure can take a marker and scribble all over some vellum. So you don't need no talent for that. So I'm just giving the deer a little bit of color. I'm working on the front side of the vellum here. And then because that's an alcohol marker, I can flick on a little isopropyl alcohol. That's how you say it. And it's going to create these little water splots or alcohol splots or whatever you want to call them. But it's making it look like water. So I did all that on the front side of the vellum because we're going to create a reflection. So I'm flipping it over. That's it, just flip it over, and then you can see I've already went ahead and stamped, colored, and die cut the coordinating deer. It has a die cut and stamp set it goes together. So I went ahead and did all that as prep for this, and I'm going to create a little card base here real quick. So I'm just going to so I'm finishing up my ink blending. I did pink, orange, and blue. Just at the top, that's all I needed to focus on. And now I can go ahead and start assembling the card here. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut down my vellum. You could actually do a whole entire panel of vellum and then just create an overlay, which I'll show you in the next tip on using vellum. But here I just cut off the little strip here, and I'm focusing on the bottom of the card, which is my water, which is my reflection. And here is the magic way to adhere your vellum. This is double-sided tape from scrapbook.com. It comes in different widths. This is actually 4-inch width, which is perfect for card panels that I make. So I just stick it on the back side of the vellum, peel off the liner, and bada bang, bada boom. You cannot see that glue. It is magic. I'll give you another close-up of that roll in just a minute. And now I'll go ahead and stick on my deer. I already put some double-sided foam tape on the back. You don't have to pop it up. I just thought it would be fun. You can glue it flat down if you want to. And now you can see like the reflection, if you will, of the deer. So then we can finish off making the card. I'm going to add some water droplets to the top of the card as well because the ink that I used is water reactive. It kind of goes with the water look at the bottom. And here's kind of a close-up of that card there. Anything can be a reflection. It does not have to be an animal. So take a look at what you have in your stash and give this a go. In another video, I created this card. It's a wolf card, and this was using the same exact technique of the reflection. And you can see the difference here. And it was super popular, so I thought I would include it again in today's video in case you missed it. It also shows that you can stamp directly to your cardstock and not have to use the die cut and get a very cool look as well.
I'll link to this vellum video up in the right hand corner for you. All right, you can do something called I'm calling an outer glow, and I actually have some gold vellum here. You can use regular vellum, and you can simply color it by coloring on the back side with an alcohol marker or an ink pad or something like that. But this is gold vellum. I have no idea where I got it from, but I've got this die cut that actually cuts the shadow and the word die, so I can pair it together. It's from the stamp market. I'll link it below in the description if you want to take a look at it. And it's just creating this very nice subtle glow. It's different than cardstock because vellum is transparent. So it gives this cool little glow look, if you will. But again, if you don't have colored vellum, you don't need it. You can simply coloring it with alcohol markers, dye inks. I show a couple ways to color it in the video. I'll also include that video in the description below about vellum as well. But that just creates this really cool outer glow look, I'm calling it, or a shadow, or whatever you want to call it. So I just think this card is super cool, and the vellum really pulls everything together. You can also use vellum as an overlay. I make a bunch of backgrounds at one time, and sometimes I don't like them. And this one was actually made with shaving cream, and I have a video all about how to use shaving cream in your card, so I'll link that up here in the right hand corner in the description below. But anyway, you can just kind of create, it softens it, if you will, just by adding vellum over the top. So this is the magic way that I adhere vellum. It's this double-sided tape from scrapbook.com. They have different widths. I have the 4-inch. I usually make 4.25 by 5.5 inch cards, so this is perfect. So you just put the thing on the back side of your vellum, peel off the lining paper, and then you're good to go. You do not see this glue. It is magic. It is invisible, whatever. But now I've just softened this background that was a little bit too much in your face. And then I had this butterfly and a circle in my magic mug, and that's how I pulled this card together. If you don't know what my magic mug is, I talk about it in my card saving hack video, which I will link up here in the right hand corner and also in the description below for you. Window or shaker cards. I don't make a lot of shaker cards because I'm super lazy, but I'm going to do it here. So this, I already had, it was in my magic mug. That's where I got the circle from the last card, the butterfly card. So I've got a piece of vellum here, cutting it down to size, and it's basically going to be my window. So you don't need to make a shaker card. You can just make a window, if you will, glue it down flat, and then you've got your window, and bada bing, bada boom, call it a day. But I'm going to make a shaker here because I'm trying not to be lazy in this particular moment in time. So here's that nostalgic stamp set that I've been using with the deer and stuff. It also has all these images in it, and these are trees that I already stamped, but I forgot to put the trunk and the little like tree box, we're going to call it, the little box. I actually have one of these on my Christmas tree, but I forgot to put that in there, so that's why I'm including this in the video. So I got to stamp that in there real quick. And I find with dies and stamps like this, when you build on them, it's easier to go ahead and die cut them and then add the little stamped images like the box and the trunk versus trying to stamp it and then die cut it or whatever. All right, so again, you can leave this as it is. You don't need to make it a shaker card. I'm creating a little window scene. You can put your stamps in front of the vellum or behind. I'm going with behind because I want that softened look for all the cards I'm making today. And I'm just gluing them down. This is my favorite glue ever. It's Barely Art glue. I get asked about it all the time. It's the same bottle I've had for years. Here's all these backgrounds that I make over the years, and I just kind of pull from that. It makes card making really fast because I've already got these backgrounds. I'm just choosing from what I've already made. And here I am making my shaker card. So this is double-sided foam tape. I find the best deal to get double-sided foam tape is off of Amazon. This roll comes, it's as big as my head, and it's inexpensive, and a roll lasts half a year at least, if not more, depending on how much you use your foam. But it comes in a big, huge roll, as big as my head, and I got a big head. So you can go ahead and cut it down the middle if you saw me do that, because I need to make it thinner. And I'm actually doubling it up because I really want my sequins to be able to move around. So as you can see, there I am cutting it down the middle. I'm also elongating the use of my foam here. And then that's done. So I've got a nice little wall for my shaker bits to sit in. I'm using these shaker bits from Catherine Pooler. I'm just dumping them in there. I don't go heavy-handed on the sequins because you want to have room for them to move around. And then I'll take that panel, that background panel there I chose from all of the pre-backgrounds I've already made over the years that I keep filed away, and I've just created this little fun shaker. So again, you can glue it down flat and have no shaker and no bits in it, and that's perfectly fine too. I still think that's a very cool look with the vellum window, because we tend to always use clear plastic when we create window cards or shakers, but I think vellum is prettier, so there you go. So here's this card. You just glue it down to a card base. I found this Merry Christmas in my magic mug. I have no idea where it came from. I also do a lot of die cutting at one sitting to create my magic mugs, to make actual card making a breeze and low stress, because I'm basically choosing from what I have in my mug. If I can find this, I will link it. But anyway, there you go. Here's a little card right there. Vellum, baby, vellum. And what I didn't know you could use on vellum is alcohol inks. Or you can use if you have alcohol markers, you can use the refills from your alcohol markers. This is again, I am using 40-pound vellum. I can't emphasize this enough. I don't know if you'll get the same look with thinner vellum. You probably won't. It'll probably all crinkle up. But anyway, I just dumped some alcohol ink on there. I've got this little felt dauber with some alcohol in it. I'm just moving it around. I also have a spray bottle with just regular alcohol you get from the store. And because I'm using thick vellum, I'm able to heat. I still have to move my heat gun around. I can't leave my heat gun in the same spot for long, or it will warp like badly because it's vellum. But I didn't have any problems in this instance because I just moved it around a lot. So I'm just creating just 2 different colors. That's it. And I've got the spray bottle with the alcohol in it, and that's it. I just messed around with it until I liked how it looked, and I like how this looks, so I'm ready to move on. Vellum is translucent, which is another cool feature about vellum. So it'll pull up the background that you use. So if you're using a busy background or a solid background, I now have this pink overlay in the background of that card because I used pink cardstock. So another reason why I love vellum. This die was also in my magic mug, so I went ahead and inked it up with Versamark ink, sticky ink, and I'm sprinkling on some sparkle black embossing powder to create this, almost made it look like an embellishment here. It thickens it up, and it also really pops against that alcohol ink background because it's a really, really deep black, but it has some sparkle in it. And I just grabbed some washi tape out of my stash just to tie this whole card panel together. So I just really adore vellum. I love the look of it. I love that it's translucent, so you can see through it, so you can pull in colored cardstock or backgrounds that you've made or backgrounds you're making, or if you make an ugly background and you want to just soften up the colors. Sometimes it's just as simple as making the color softer, and vellum really does that. You can color vellum. So you can, create custom colored vellum. You don't need to go buy colored vellum. Just create your own with markers, inks, whatever. So I hope this has inspired you to pull out your vellum and use it and create cards. And if there's any other vellum techniques that you have, I want you to tell me in the comments below, because I'm always, looking for new things to do. And if you have any video requests from me that you want to see on my channel, also please include that in the comments, because I read every single comment. Today in this video, I'm going to show you how I made these 2 cards using the peony background stamp by the ton. So when this stamp originally came out, I had the idea of using it with some vellum and some glitter embossing powder and some Copic markers. So I've inked up that peony background stamp with some Versamark, and I'm placing some 43-pound vellum on the card. I'm making sure that I get the solid peonies as well as the outline. I want both of those on my vellum. And then I am sprinkling on some Fool's Gold embossing powder by Wow. It is this gorgeous embossing powder that's got this bronze gold tint to it. I saw my friend Catherine Pooler use it on a card, and I sent her a message and I said, "What color is that? I have to have it." So I got mine off of Amazon. And I'll be sure to link that below if you're interested. But I just think this color is very unique. It's quite pretty. If you get any stray embossing powder where you don't want it, just take a dry brush like I just did and brush it away. It's like embossing powder should know you only want it where your Versamark is. So I brushed it away and move it on. The key to getting a good heat embossed image is to let your heat gun heat up for a good 15 to 20 seconds if you can. Then it's going to heat up your embossing powder so quickly. You can see how quickly it's heating up here. And you'll get a nice even heat. over the entire embossed image there. I just think it's so pretty, especially on vellum. You want to be careful not to keep your heat gun in the same spot for too long on vellum. This vellum I love. It's the 43-pound vellum by Ellen. It's the Ellen Hudson. It's the thickest vellum I've ever seen, and I love it, love it, love it. So while that's cooling off, I want to show you how quickly it is to make this other card, because Versamark is not only for heat embossing, it's for making a watermark or a tone-on-tone impression. So I inked up that background stamp. I pressed my cardstock against the stamp, and look at that. You can just leave it just like this. It's so pretty, this beautiful tone-on-tone background. You can go in with some light markers if you want to add some shading, or you can leave it as is, which is what I'm going to wind up doing. But I just wanted to show you that Versamark is not just for heat embossing. So now I'm going to go in and add some color with my Copic markers, Spectrum Noir, any kind of alcohol marker here. You want to flip it over and work on the back. You want to start coloring on the back side. I went in ahead of time and colored in where those leaves are, because when you're looking at from behind, it's kind of hard to make out where the leaves are. Then I'm going to go in and add little bits of red here in some of the petals of the peony, and then I'll go in with a pink and finish off the rest of the color. Now, when you're coloring on vellum, you want to think about a couple of things. You want to use some bright colors, because vellum, it's going to mute it out. When you flip it over, the colors aren't going to be as bright, as intense when you look through it through the vellum. So you want to use some brighter colors. And you're not going to get a beautifully blended look. You can see I'm going in with it's hard to see because I put this in fast motion, but I'm using the side of my brush, and I'm trying to do long, even strokes, but it's not going to be beautifully smooth like you would if you were coloring on some regular cardstock, because that's not what vellum was meant for. But it's okay. I think it is so pretty the way it is. I love seeing some of those pen strokes through the vellum. So I was toying around with whether I wanted to do white or that pink cardstock. I decided to go with pink. Now the trick with the vellum is always trying to figure out how to adhere it. If you have a sewing machine, that's definitely an option. I don't know how to sew. I'm lucky I could sew on a button, you know what I mean? So I'm going in with some multi-matte medium here, and I applied a very thin application to the vellum, and then I'm going to adhere that right down over my on my card panel there, that pink cardstock there, which is by, I think it's called Sweet Gelato by W+9. And that's a really strong matte glue, so it's going to hold that vellum in place quite nicely. But there are a couple other ways to adhere vellum. I've known people to, again, sew it on, staple it on. They use glossy accents. Just kind of figure out whatever works best for you. I'm going to leave this card sentiment free, and then when I'm ready to send this out, I will stamp a sentiment on the inside of the card. I just think it's so pretty, and I just wanted to leave it as is. I just think they turned out beautifully. So thank you so much for taking time and joining me today. And if you haven't already, if you see that click here to subscribe button, if you click it, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. So again, thanks for joining me, and I'll be back in a few days for another video.